Hey everyone, I'm Sison, and today we're taking a look at the Sony 100mm F2.8 STF G Master lens. Now the Sony 100mm F2.8 STF joins the 24-70 2.8, the 85mm f1.4, the 70-200mm f2.8, and the newly announced 100-400mm lenses in the G Master lineup. And I have to quickly give props to Sony for releasing and announcing so many lenses in their G Master and their FE lens range as a whole, because right now their camera system is looking more and more attractive for people who are thinking of switching to Sony or people who are thinking of getting into the E-mount system. Now, to get back to the lens, this is the first of its kind that features autofocus and optical stabilization in an STF lens. And for those that don't know, STF stands for smooth transfocus, which basically means there's a special element inside the lens that's going to give you a very unique look to your photos. To explain this further, I'm going to draw this out for you. Now here's a drawing of a normal lens element. And here is the 100mm STF with an APD element. From the edge, it acts as a graduated neutral density filter, with it being most intense at the edge, but gradually getting less intense toward the center. Having the APD element is what gives the lens extremely smooth out of focus blur compared to other lenses. The downside, however, is that you do lose 2 stops of light. So while this lens is rated as an f2.8, you're actually getting a t5.6 instead because of the APD element. And to quickly show you what the effects of this lens is, here is a side-by-side sample of the Sony 100mm STF on the left and the Sony 90mm f2.8 macro on the right. Now I hope you all understood that. Let's talk about its design. The lens is like the other G Master lenses, with a solid build with the lens specs on the top and the G Master badge on the side. There are 3 rings on the lens. The top is a rubber focus ring, the middle is a plastic aperture ring, and the last is a macro switch, where the lens can focus between 57cm to 1 meter or 85cm to infinite. On the side of the lens is a focus hold button, which can be customized to other functions like eye autofocus. And there are also 2 switches which control autofocus and manual focus, and a switch to turn the stabilization on and off. And finally, on the other side is a switch to have a clicking sound or clickless aperturing. It also accepts 72mm filters and is accompanied with a plastic barrel type lens hood with rubber on the tip. Reinforcing its ruggedness, it also has a rubber gasket on the mount of the lens to ensure that it will be able to withstand dust and moisture. Now the lens weighs approximately 700 grams, and having it on the Sony A7RM2, it may feel a bit front heavy. And while I love the design of the lens with the focus ring, the aperture ring, and the macro ring, sometimes if I'm photographing something close, I'll obviously set it to macro mode, but then when I change my subject, shooting something far away, I may forget that I need to switch it back, and obviously the lens won't focus. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're using this lens. The lens features a direct drive supersonic motor, otherwise known as DDSSM, for quick and quiet focusing. When it comes down to shooting with this lens though, the focusing was fairly quick in bright sunlight and seemed to hunt a bit in low light scenarios. I felt like the focusing ring was a bit too loose when I used it in manual focus, but when I used the aperture ring, it had a tactile feel to it with 1/3 of a stop increments, and of course, setting it to A means that you're shooting it in order. The stabilization worked very well while shooting with it, and can also be handy for video purposes if you're standing still. Compared to other lenses, this lens did well with regard to focus breathing. It's still noticeable, but from what you can see, it's not too severe. When it comes to the images, I can't really fault how sharp and impressive it is. To be honest, I didn't expect less from a G Master lens. It exhibited nice and pleasing colors, with chromatic aberration not being an issue at all. The same can be said for vignetting and any type of distortion, which is great to see in such a specialized lens. In my opinion, the bokeh is by far the best I've seen in any lens, but this shouldn't be surprising since this is the lens's specialty. However, bokeh is subjective, so you either like it or hate it, but to me, I absolutely love how the lens smooths out the background for the subject in focus. Now this is just a quick autofocusing test with the Sony 100mm STF lens mounted on the Sony A7RM2. Now I have the camera set on face detection, and I'm hoping this is going to keep up with my movements as I move forward and backward within the frame. So this is just the last time I'm going to do it, and I hope that's good. The Sony 100mm F2.8 STF G Master is certainly a lens for people that want to achieve a certain look to their photos, with the main selling point being the out of focus blur. Now speaking of the out of focus blur, it's definitely the best I've seen so far in a lens, with the background being very nice and smooth and not too distracting from your subject in focus. And this can only be achieved on an STF lens. Now the main trade-off is that you are losing a couple stops of light, so this will make it a bit challenging to shoot in low light situations. But if you're a photographer or a portrait photographer who can work around this, you will get a very unique look to your photos, and that will help separate you from the bunch of photographers that are already out there. Now at the moment, this is the cheapest G Master lens that you can possibly get, but when you also factor in the build quality and the actual quality of images that you're getting in your photos, this may be a valuable addition to your kit. Now if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below, and if you already own one, let me know what you think of it. And remember to like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe to my channel for more Sony lens reviews and tutorials. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram for more sample photos and photo updates. And don't forget to take a look in the description below for more information about this lens, as well as purchasing links. Now until then, happy shooting and thanks for watching. Because not many other with the round edges. The bokeh is very smooth and round, and the bokeh is smooth with rounded edges. Oh, fucking kill me. In a lens with the edges being nice and smooth and very creamy buttery. Potato. Potato mash. Thing is on the Sony 100mm F2.8